They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I believe that. But pictures are also the single biggest threat to your marriage. And I'm not talking about the ones that are in your Google Photos. I'm not even talking about the ones that are in that secret folder that you got locked up on your phone either. I'm talking about the pictures in your head, the mental images your brain has built about who your wife should be, what she should do, and how she should act. And also, what a good marriage is supposed to look like. Those pictures are destroying your marriage. And the scary part is, you don't even know they're there. My name is Marquez Pye. I came from a broken family. And I almost let the pain of my past destroy my family. Now, I help high-performing fathers make sure that doesn't happen to them. Let's get into it. In this video, I'm going to help you fix your marriage before you break it by showing you how to delete those pictures from the cloud. By the way, this will also help you with your kids and in life in general. This video is for high-performing fathers who are willing to look at themselves, men who believe their family is worth fighting for. If you're dealing with anger, disconnection, or you're on the verge of divorce, I got you, fam. But if you're here to figure out how to change your wife, your kids, or the people around you, this ain't for you, my guy. Let me tell you why I'm qualified to talk about this. I'm going on 16 years of marriage and have 3 amazing kids. But this isn't Disney Channel. And life isn't all cupcakes and rainbows. I almost lost everything before I figured out what was actually going on with me. My parents separated when I was 8 and divorced when I was 12. The environment that I grew up in was not stable at all. I went through child abuse, and I'm not talking about just getting a whooping or just getting yelled at. I mean real trauma and real abuse, physically, psychologically, and emotionally. And the things that happened to me as a child, I ended up carrying with me for years without me fully understanding what I was carrying. I didn't know at the time that every one of those experiences was programming pictures in my head. Pictures about what men do, what women are, what love looks like, what safety feels like, and what it means to trust people. I didn't choose those pictures. They were programmed into my brain by somebody else and forced onto me, which is the case for most of us. But like I told you earlier, life isn't like a Disney Channel movie. My wife and I separated 3 different times. 3 times. Not once, not twice, 3. And every single time I thought the problem was something on the surface. Something we could fix if we just, communicated better, tried harder, or just gave it more time. But the truth was, I kept bringing the same man back into that marriage after every separation, and I couldn't figure out why. Now I know what you're thinking, but what about her? Doesn't she have distorted pictures in her head that she needs to delete too? The answer is yes. I won't lie to you. It takes 2 people to make a marriage work. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's all your fault, but I am going to tell you this. As the leader of your home and as the head of your family, you carry the most responsibility for making sure that it doesn't fall apart. That's not a burden, that's a blessing. And once I accepted that, I started doing the real work. Everything changed for me. All those pictures that I had in my head were projecting onto her. And I couldn't see it because I was too busy looking at what I thought was the problem to realize that it wasn't even real. It was all fake, make-believe, and imaginary. Just like those so-called reality shows on TV that aren't even real. But the pictures kept running in the background, on repeat in my head. And my marriage kept paying the price. Like Thanos said, I know what it's like to lose. And my job is to make sure I can save as many fathers and families as I can. Here's what I mean when I talk about pictures. The number 1 cause of conflict in any marriage is perspectives. And perspectives come from perceptions. And if you break it all the way down to its simplest form, perceptions are just pictures. Pictures turn into perspectives. And perspectives are the immediate meaning that you assign to everything that your spouse does, based on your own beliefs and your own past. She texts you back late, and you don't see a late text. You see disrespect. She questions your decision, and you don't hear a question, you hear an attack. And when both of you are locked in to your own perspectives, you stop seeing each other as partners and teammates, and you start seeing each other as the ops. Now you're not trying to understand each other. You're just trying to win. That's not a marriage problem. That's a Google Photos problem. Here's why. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its job is to keep you alive and help you avoid risk. And it does that by creating mental images based on everything that you've ever seen, been taught, and experienced in your life. It stores those images in your personal cloud, your brain. And every time a situation comes up, it flips through that library and it says, here's what this looks like. Here's what's about to happen. Here's what you need to do. Most of those images were installed in you before you could even write your name good. What you watched your parents do, whether good or bad, what you learned about women from the women around you growing up, but mainly your mother. What you decided love is supposed to look like based on what you saw growing up. This is why you see people stay in toxic relationships, whether it's friendships or romantic ones, because that environment feels safe to them. It's not that they like it, it's just that it's familiar and it's what they think they need. I know it sounds twisted and dumb, but it's true. And I'm sure you know someone like that. That's why they can't escape. Because to their brain, the risk of the unfamiliar is worse than the toxic environment. You also decided what it means to feel safe based on your upbringing. Those aren't facts, they're pictures. But your brain treats them like facts. So when your wife does something, you don't actually see what she did, you see what your brain predicted she would do based on an old picture. And then you respond to the picture instead of the person. Now you're in an argument about something that isn't even fully real because you're fighting your own demons, which are nothing more than just mental images. And now both of you are trying to figure out, how did you get this upset over something so small? Let me give you some examples. Maybe you have a picture that says a good wife is supposed to support your hustle no matter what. So when she raises a concern about money or your schedule, all you hear is a threat. You treat her like she's an op because the picture said she should be for you, not against you. Maybe you have a picture that says women are too emotional and never make good decisions. So when she gets upset, instead of you asking her what's going on with you, you just dismiss her feelings because the picture said emotions aren't real. Here's my 2 cents about feelings. It's a fact that you have a feeling, but your feelings aren't necessarily facts. This is why I found it so hard to understand my wife's feelings, because logically, they weren't real. I used to think that she was crazy, and sometimes I still do. Man, I gotta make sure she don't watch this one. But the key isn't to understand whether or not her feelings are based on facts, fears, or lies, because it's a real experience for her in that moment, and that deserves your respect. If you try and dismiss her feelings, you make her feel unsafe, unheard, and unvalued. And no matter how good of a solution or advice that you give her, she won't hear it. She will only hear that you don't love her. Why? Because of those doggone pictures I've been talking about. See how it works now? You could also have a picture that says, a real man's job is to bring home the bacon, and that should be enough. So when she wants more of your time, more conversation, or more connection, all you hear is nagging instead of an invitation to connect with you. I want you to think about this for a second. You're not actually married to your wife. You're married to the picture of your wife that lives in your head. And every time you treat her like those pictures in your head, instead of the person that she actually is, you will push her further away. Now let me show you how this is actually costing your marriage. When you're certain about your pictures, when you feel they're the only source of truth, you stop asking questions. I call this the arrogance tax. Certainty is a form of arrogance. When you're certain that you're right, you stop being curious. When you stop being curious, you stop growing. When you stop growing, your marriage starts dying. This is a law. Anything that isn't growing is dying. Anything that isn't getting stronger is getting weaker. She brings up a concern. Instead of you asking why it matters to her, you explain why she's wrong before you even fully hear her out. She wants to talk to you, but instead of listening, you're already getting your rebuttal ready. She makes a decision that you don't agree with. Instead of asking, what was she thinking? You tell her what she's thinking, and then you tell her what she should have done. You're not a bad husband. You're not trying to hurt her. You really do think that you're helping, but she's not hearing help. She's hearing that her perspective doesn't matter to you, that she's dumb and you're smarter than her, that she's the problem. And every time that happens, you make a withdrawal from your wife's love bank. Your marriage takes a hit. Your kids suffer silently because they can feel the tension in the house, whether they tell you they can or not. Trust is gone. Connection is lost. Nobody is giving space for grace anymore, because everyone is hurt and they're too busy trying to protect themselves from the person that says they love them the most. That's a horrible way to live. Trust me, I know. That's why we have to be careful with using logic in our marriage, because logic without love is perceived as arrogance. Here's what changed my marriage. I stopped seeing my wife as the enemy, and I realized that my biggest enemy was never her. My biggest enemy wasn't even real. It was all in my head. It was the picture I had of who she should be, the expectation I was holding her to that she never agreed to and never knew existed. That's what I was fighting. Not her, but a picture, an imaginary version of a wife built from a broken childhood, unprocessed pain, and expectations I picked up from people who didn't even have good marriages themselves. When you fight your wife, you can't win because she's a real person. And real people don't disappear when you beat them in an argument. But when you fight the picture, you can win because you created it. And what you created, you can change. The picture is not permanent. The picture is not the truth. The picture is old data that's running through a system that was never updated. And it's time to update that system. I know you've tried. You're not a man that's quit or given up. even though I'm sure you wanted to throw in the towel plenty of times. Maybe you went to marriage counseling, sat in the room, and did the sessions, felt like progress was actually being made. And then 6 months later, you were right back in the same position. Because counseling can help you communicate better around the pictures, but it rarely identifies the pictures or why they even exist in the first place. Because nobody can really see those pictures except you. And nobody can get to the real reason they were taken and programmed into your mind with surface level questions. Maybe you read marriage books, listened to all the podcasts, and watched hundreds of hours of YouTube videos, took notes, felt motivated, and 2 weeks later, the old habits came back again. That's because information doesn't work in isolation, because information doesn't change your identity. Information is nothing without implementation. And education is not the same as execution. Maybe you made promises after those hard nights, told her that it was going to be different next time. And I'm sure you meant it every single time. But you ended up going back on your word. Because willpower can't fix your belief system. You will never consistently act in a way that is incongruent with your belief system. Behavior always follows identity. It's like you're trying to put a band-aid on a bullet wound. Everything you've tried so far has been aimed at the surface, at the behaviors, at the symptoms. The real issue has always been deeper than that. It's your identity, your belief system, those secret pictures in that hidden folder on your mental cell phone that you have struggled for years to get rid of. You ever deleted a picture from your phone only to go back into your Photos app and realize that the picture was still there? There's a reason for that. It's because those images are stored on your cloud. And until you delete them from the cloud, they'll always be there. Look, I can give you some things to do right now, and they'll help you. But if you don't upgrade your identity first, you'll do them for 2 weeks and fall right back into the same patterns again. Because your behaviors are attached to your beliefs, and your beliefs are running off those old pictures. Remember, behavior always follows identity, not the other way around. That's why the 3 things that I'm about to give you only work when you upgrade your identity. Not because you force willpower, because you act from who you actually believe you are. You can't create lasting, meaningful change without an identity upgrade. The only way to change those pictures for good is to go through what I call identity transformation. So here are the 3 things. And as you do them, I want you thinking about who you're becoming, not just what you're doing. Number 1, keep your logic to your freaking self. I know that sounds backwards, but hear me out. Say you want to go on vacation and she doesn't. Your logic says, we work hard. We deserve a break. This will be good for us. Her logic says, we just spent money on the house. I'm worried about our finances. Both make sense, but you're both standing there trying to win. Nobody's listening and nobody is moving. And now you're both more frustrated than before you started the conversation. What if instead you just asked the question, can you help me understand why you don't want to go? That's it. You're not trying to convince her. You're trying to understand her. Understanding leads to solutions. Convincing leads to resentment. Number 2, ask better questions. Stop asking, why is she doing this to me? Start asking, why do I feel this way right now? Stop asking, what's wrong with her? And start asking, how can I understand what she's trying to tell me right now? Stop asking, why can't she just see it my way? Start asking, what can I do to make her feel safe enough to understand my point of view? Those questions move you from a teacher to a student. And a man who's willing to learn in his marriage is a man whose marriage can actually grow. Think about when you get that notification from your phone that your storage is almost full. You need to delete some files before you can record anything new now, right? Your brain works the same way. You can't install new pictures until you delete the old ones that are taking up all the space. And that starts with asking the right questions. Number 3, give space for grace. Both of you are allowed to be human because both of you are human. And as far as I know, there's only been one person who has ever been perfect, and he doesn't live on this earth anymore. So if you're married to a human being, and I'm going to assume you are, she's going to be imperfect, and so are you. Grace doesn't mean that you don't have any standards. Grace doesn't mean that you just let everything slide. Grace means you remember that she's doing the best she can with the limited information that she has, just like you're doing the best you can with the limited information that you have. Remember, she has her own demons that she's fighting. She has her own pictures that she's wrestling with. And just like you, she has to do the work to delete them too. When you give each other that space, both of you start to feel safe again. And when there's safety, there's vulnerability. And when there's vulnerability, there's real connection. And real connection is what your marriage has actually been missing. Not better arguments, not more logic, and not more emotions. A lack of real and authentic connection. Look, everything I just talked about, the pictures, where they came from, and how they got installed, and most importantly, how you can actually start deleting them. I break all of that down in my new book called I've Been Framed. It's only $9. And if you're serious about fixing what's going on at home, it'll be the best $9 that you will ever spend. The link is in the description. I want to be clear about something. I can't guarantee you that your marriage is going to work. I can't promise you that if you do this work, your wife will suddenly change or everything will be perfect, because it takes two people to make a marriage work. My job is not to save your marriage. My job is to make sure that you are not the reason that your marriage fails. If your wife isn't willing to do her part, that's outside of your or my control. But if you're willing to do yours, if you're willing to delete those pictures, ask better questions, and give grace, then I can help you become the man your family actually needs. And most of the time when a man does that work, something shifts in the whole house. She sees him changing. She hears him listening. She sees him actually trying, and she wants to meet him there. God made you the leader for a reason. I can't promise you that she will change, but I can promise you this. If you do this work, you will not be the reason for your marriage failing, and that alone is worth it. If you're ready to go deeper, I want to tell you about the Fatherhood. It's more than just a course. It's a brotherhood of high-performing fathers, entrepreneurs, executives, doctors, lawyers, pastors, athletes, and entertainers. Men who refuse to choose between winning at work and winning at home. Men who are doing the real work to keep their families together. Most programs just give you information and leave you alone to figure it out by yourself. The Fatherhood gives you the framework, the tools, and puts you in the room with men who are doing the same work and share the same values. This allows you to get questions answered that you might not have even thought to ask, and that you might be too embarrassed to ask for yourself. My job is to help you see what you can't see because you're too busy looking at your problems. You need men in your corner who've made it to the other side. That's what the Fatherhood is. And if you want to find out what it looks like to work with me, go to my Instagram and DM me the word unbreakable, and I'll get you all the information you need. And if you want to see how to become an unbreakable father, check out this video right here. Remember, unbreakable fathers create unbreakable families. Peace.